All right, hello everyone, and welcome to our webinar on Get to Know WSET's SACE qualifications. My name is Julia Lambeth. I'm one of the educators here at WSET School London. Not a SACE educator, I should hasten to add, which is why I've got a couple of people with me tonight to help talk you through the various SACE qualifications. For those of you that don't know us, the WSET School London is the sort of flagship school for WSET. We're based in London Bridge and we offer the full suite of WSET qualifications, including all the SACE qualifications. So first up, just to make sure everyone's aware what we offer and kind of where SACE sits within that. So we now have, well, various levels across beer, sake, spirits, and wine. Only two, say only two is still pretty good for beer at the moment. Three different qualifications for sake and spirits, and four for wine now. So yeah, lots of different things going on. The SACE qualifications is something that maybe people are a little bit less familiar with compared to some of our other qualifications. So this was one of the reasons for the inspiration behind putting this session on tonight. We do have an open evening once a year where people come to us and they're able to ask us questions. But for those people not able to come to us, it's just a nice way to get to know a little bit more what goes on, what is required for each of the levels, and hopefully have a better understanding by the end of it. So, in terms of our speakers tonight, I'm very glad to be joined by Henry Thorogood, who is one of our SACE educators here at the school. Just to give a little introduction, Henry is a drinks consultant specialising in Japanese beverage culture. He's studied and lived in Japan and also gained first-hand brewing experience, as you can probably tell from the picture there. And he now teaches all levels of SACE qualifications at WSET School London. Henry's journey began in 2015 when he went to Japan for the first time, and yeah, I think safe to say it left quite an impression. He's since earned the Japanese Sommelier Association's International Sake Diploma, graduated from the JSS Sake and Shochu Academy program. He also judges both wine and sake at the International Wine Challenge and Asian Spirits at the International Spirits Challenge. So, I mean, yeah, pretty impressive. I'm sure you'll all agree. Anastasia Ivanova is here representing our kind of student perspective. So very glad to be glad to be joined by her as well. By way of introduction to Anastasia, she's an experienced event manager with a strong passion for Japanese culture. I think there's a similar sort of background in terms of being inspired by time in Japan, really. So Anastasia studied Japanese culture and sociology in Japan. She has studied levels 1, 2, and 3. So this is why she's fully qualified to give us the full overview and the differences. She again began her sake journey during time in Japan, where she became fascinated by it, and I think safe to say that passion, that inspiration has carried on ever since. So then. In terms of what we're going to talk about for the session, we'll have a little look at what is sake, just to make sure everyone is aware of what we're talking about in the first place. We'll look at the different qualifications, both in terms of, what it takes and also kind of the student perspective on those things. We'll talk about how the tasting changes, because I think that is something that a lot of people worry about when undertaking any sort of drinks qualification, is how important that is and how that fits in. I've got a couple of comments from previous courses, and then we'll leave it open for the Q&A. If you do have any questions, please feel free to type those into the Q&A as we're going along, and we'll just check those at the end and sort of bring in questions there. Just before I pass over to Henry, just a brief mention of, I guess, why WSET does sake courses. You may or may not know that WSET is a qualification that is based in London. But it was really a kind of combination of an interest from the Japan side plus an interest from the London side that led to the qualifications coming together. So it was Anthony Moss, MW, who was the sort of London side of things, who was interested in sake and was one of the kind of main drivers in terms of getting that started, in combination with Sake Samurai that were already based in Japan. So sort of it was this kind of meeting of quite high level ideas, which started the process off. And actually, the first level three was in 2013. So quite a while ago now. Maybe slightly conversely compared to some of the other qualifications, we sort of started with level three and level one and two sort of came afterwards. So that is, again, maybe part of the reason why some people are not sure what the differences are or where to start. So hopefully we can clarify all of that for you now. So that's enough from me. Henry, if I can sort of pass over to you and get us started on what is sake.
Of course. Well, it's so nice to be here with everyone tonight, and I'm looking forward to all of your questions at the end as well. I hope you have maybe a glass of sake in hand as well. I know Anastasia has something to hand, so I hope you're celebrating the lights coming in as it gets a bit darker and we need something to warm up. Maybe some hot sake, who knows? So, what is sake? And maybe what is not sake as well, we'll cover briefly. So we've got our first bullet, fermented rice drink. So let's unpack that a little bit. Fermented, so we are not in a distilled beverage here. We're definitely in the fermented world. So this ABV down towards kind of 14 to 17%, similar to a wine. Rice drink, well, it's a drink, of course, but the main raw material being rice, along with three other kind of key ingredients, water, yeast, and something you may not be so familiar with, which is koji. Koji is steamed white rice with mold growing on it, but a very special mold. And we're already pretty much all familiar with this mold, I think, intuitively. It's what is used as the basis of making soy sauce and miso, and imparts a lot of umami, that savory taste that we associate it, I think, a lot with Japanese cuisine. But it's very important in the production of sake as well, in fact, crucial. But beyond that sort of broad category, we have a huge range of different sakes available. We have different sake made across all of the different regions of Japan. So Japan is a very, very long country, quite tropical in the south, quite wintry and snowy up in the north, at least during the winter season, very cold up in Hokkaido. And all across the nation there are sake breweries. In every single prefecture, there's a sake brewery. And with that, you get your local water, your local rice varieties, your different climates, and also your regional cuisines, which all play a part in the kind of sake that you might expect to find from one region or another. So, for instance, down in the south in Saga prefecture, we have a lot of sweet food, and their sake tends to be a bit sweeter to match that sweetness. We have different rice, not species, but varieties. We have about over 100 sake-specific rice varieties. So that's sake rice varieties that have been either selected or developed to be easy to use in the brewery, or have a certain characteristic that the brewer wants to use. So all of that variety gives the brewers so many choices, the sake brewers so many choices when you're thinking about what rice to use in your sake. Different polishing ratios. If you study one of the WSET qualifications, we'll talk about polishing ratios quite a lot. It's a very important step early on in your sake brewing process, is how much of the outside of the rice grain you decide to polish away. And this outside layer contains fats, proteins, minerals, vitamins, and the removal of those compounds changes the sort of course of the fermentation that's going to come later on, and what kind of sake you can make. So whether we polish that rice right down to a small sort of just pure starch, or we keep some of these other elements, these fats and proteins, that can influence the style greatly. Different production methods, as I've said, sort of touched on, there are a few choices that brewers can make. in fact, many, many choices that brewers can make. For instance, what yeast are we going to use? Are we going to use a strain that tends to give us more fruity flavors, or something that gives us a more robust style? Maybe how do we make our fermentation starter? We're going to do it in kind of a modern method, which gives us nice clarity of flavor, or we're going to do it in a more traditional method that gives us more complex and more lactic flavors. And then different styles of sake. This is sort of, so far I've kind of been thinking about the sake that is maybe sort of clear and still and colorless, but you have aged sakes, which are from gold through to deep brown. You have sparkling sakes, a relatively new category. You have cloudy sakes, which have been lightly filtered. So not only do you have maybe the sake that you're familiar with, or most familiar with, but also these specialty styles as well to explore. So there really is a whole world of sake out there, and the different qualifications give you an introduction maybe, and then you can really sort of dig deeper as you go through the levels.
Yeah, thank you for that, Henry. Yeah, what a lovely introduction, and almost sort of a little peek behind the curtain there at what sake is before we sort of get into anything in more detail. And hopefully already we've got people out there going, okay, there's maybe more to this than I initially thought. Which does then bring us on to the different levels. So you did mention we've got different levels there. Can you give us a little overview of how it changes from your perspective as an educator between the different levels?
Yes, for sure. So I think if you're familiar with the WSET structure, this kind of mirrors the other qualifications. So level 1, this is very much an introduction to sake. This is giving you the key sort of knowledge. It's a one-day course, so 6 hours in class, quite a fun, casual way to learn about the beverage, but also you get a qualification at the end of it. So you'll get kind of during the course the key knowledge behind, surrounding the sake category. And that's not only just those mainstream styles, but also you'll look at the specialty styles as well. And so I think it's really perfect if you're totally new to WSET or totally new to sake, but your interest has been piqued. Maybe you've had it once or twice, but you haven't yet had a chance to explore. Maybe the level 1 is for you. If maybe you're more familiar with the WSET approach and the sort of how the levels work, and you're kind of comfortable taking WSET exams, or you have a burgeoning interest in sake, so maybe you've been to Japan and you've tried a bunch of sake whilst you were there and you thought, I really want to know a lot more about this. You kind of have this burgeoning interest from wine or spirits as well, and you want to expand your knowledge, but you don't want to go straight into the level 3 because that's quite a rigorous qualification. Then the level 2 is really great. It gives you this broad understanding. So we've gone from kind of key knowledge into kind of a broad understanding at level 2. The level 2 course takes place across 3 days. 2.5 is teaching, and then you have your exam in the last portion of the third day. And you really do cover every point of sake production during the level 2. So you're really going into each choice and covering it. So you can really come out with a broad understanding of sake and the choices that brewers are making when they're brewing sake, and how that links to what you can see on the label. You'll come out of the course being able to read a sake label and say, I have some idea of what this should taste like. It's not always the case, but you have a good idea of what it will probably taste like. Then if we step up to the level 3, this is, we need some, level 1 and level 2, there's no knowledge prerequisites. Level 3, there is an online sort of preparation course, which kind of means you're showing level 2 knowledge, I think. So you have to kind of come into the course a bit more prepared. And this course will give you not only a broad understanding, but a deep understanding of sake. Um, it's quite a rigorous qualification. There's definitely quite technical parts to the qualifications. For me, I think it's kind of the gold standard in terms of both theory and tasting of the sake qualifications out there. And for me personally, it was also life changing. You know, it's really what led me down into the Japanese beverage route. It was kind of the catalyst that really enabled me to build my career in sake. So I think if you're looking to expand your product knowledge in a really serious way, or you want to work more closely with Japan, I think that it also has this kind of professional element to it as well. But it's perfectly suitable for those super enthusiasts where level 2 wasn't quite enough to satiate their interest, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you. Just a small point of clarification is that the level 2 is not prerequisite for level 3 in sake, so there isn't a sort of entrance exam like that. But I think it's quite highly recommended because to go in straight for level 3 is yeah, a challenge. I think rigorous was the word that you used. So if you haven't
Yeah.
had any prior grounding, it's going to make it a little bit more of a challenge than it would be otherwise. But Anastasia, maybe you can throw it over to you from the student perspective. Like, how did you find your journey through these different qualifications?
Yeah, so it's amazing to be here now to be able to promote the sake qualifications. I hope that more students can take it after that and learn more about sake and study from Henry. He was my teacher on level 2. And actually, I started taking this course from level 2, not from level 1.
Sorry, my mistake.
No, I did all of them. I did level 1, 2, and 3, but I
Ah,
actually started from level 2. Um, and only then I did level 1 and then I did level 3. And I would say that for, as Henry said, like for level 1 and level 2, you don't need to take, like, you don't need to know anything about sake before that. But interestingly, even for level 3, I was the only one from like who was doing level 3 who actually did level 2 or level 1 before. I think it's just really important to prepare in advance for it. And WSET provides you with amazing online materials, well, actually with tests for you to practice for the exam and to learn the basics before. Um, yeah, and I actually prepared the material that I was given at each level to show you how it changes what you're given. So at level 1, it's more of an entertainment, like an introduction to sake world. You are drinking and learning about sake, and then there is a multiple choice exam, which is pretty easy, and you're capable to do it even when you're a bit tipsy. But for level 1, you're just given this printout materials with all the basics. Then for level 2, it gets a bit more serious, and you get a textbook, you get a workbook, and you also get this sake tasting sheet. So this is what you get. And for level 3, the book is way thicker. And here you can see I actually had to put a lot of marks there. There was a lot more reading for level 3, a lot more serious. Then you also get the oh my God, the also the workbook again, the tasting sheets, and also, yeah, this tasting sheet, which is a bit more um, detailed than for the level 2 one. And also you can see how much thicker the book for level 1 and level 2 is. So definitely you have to, if for level 1, of course, and for level 2, you don't really need to prepare for these courses, though I would recommend for level 2 to read this book before the course. It will make it way easier for you to understand all the chemistry in sake making. For level 3, definitely you have to come and read, like, at least, I think, like maybe 3 weeks of reading. I think it's something that you would need. You can't just come unprepared, because you will not be able to pass otherwise, because you will not have time. If level 1 is just fun and entertainment, level 2 is a perfect mix of entertainment and education, and level 3, there is a bit of entertainment, but it's more serious, very intense. So yeah, I would recommend taking level 3 more seriously. Yeah.
Cool. That is really useful to know. And I think actually just that like visual difference between the textbooks is quite stark. And I think, yeah, it's something we try and communicate ahead of people kind of coming to the course, like how much they need to do in advance. But it's not always easy to know. So yeah, good to have that reinforced. Yeah, particularly with the level 3, it's quite a condensed, intensive version of the course typically. And in order to take it all in and enjoy the tastings of all these amazing samples that we have, you don't want to be feeling like too pressured or too stressed. So yeah, I think that's a really useful thing to reinforce and point out there. Excellent. All right. So next then, just to give a little bit more detail about how the knowledge changes across the different levels, because as well as having more information, what you're expected to retain and how you're assessed on it changes as well. So Henry, maybe you could start us off here.
Sure. So I think this slide is quite elegant in terms of laying out the differences between the levels. So level 1, it's really about, remember that it's a multiple choice exam. Remember then that you're really just showing the knowledge that you've been presented in the course. It's a 1-day course, so it's really recall of kind of key facts about, say, labeling. What does it mean for a sake to have this on the label? And there'll be 4 choices, and you choose the correct one. And that will be kind of quite straight definition style recall. At level 2, we're still in this multiple choice exam, longer one, but the questions, they're probing you a bit more. So they're asking you to show that you understand what's going on. So maybe it will ask you how would a brewer out of these options make this kind of sake, and it will give 3 incorrect options and 1 correct options. And that will draw on your understanding of brewing. It won't just be a simple, this is a labeling term, which one is the correct one that matches. There will be some of that knowledge recall as well, of course, but more of the questions will ask you to build up and apply that knowledge in the sense of understanding. Then at level 3, we take it a step further. So it's not only this idea of understanding, but it's this idea of application. So explaining in your own words, especially on the short answer paper. We have the multiple choice paper as well, but we have the short answer paper to really test if you can express in your own words all of that understanding that you've gained. So maybe a short answer question would be, you are a brewer. I'd like you have been tasked to make a fruity floral ginjo style of sake. Explain how you would do this, starting at selection of rice through to filtration of the sake. That would be quite a big question, but even so, you get the idea that you're expected to put yourself in the shoes of the brewer and really produce all of the information that you need and apply all of the knowledge and your understanding in solving this problem of making a fruity floral Ginjo style of sake, or whatever it is. So you're adding these kind of building blocks up as you go through the levels. First, that knowledge layer at level 1, then understanding what sits behind that knowledge at level 2, and then sort of producing the explanation, applying your comprehension at level 3.
Yeah, lovely explanation there. Thank you. And actually, this sort of links nicely to the next slide, which just has a bit of an overview of how the qualifications work at each level. So you've mentioned already that level 1 is just multiple choice, and because level 1, as we've said, is done in one day, you're not required to prepare in advance. So these are questions that are not designed to trip you up. Let's put it that way. So it's supposed to be something that you can learn during the day, and you'll be able to pass that at the end. Level 2. Yeah, a little bit more serious with more multiple choice questions and harder multiple choice questions. And then at level 3 is, really where it changes more significantly in that you have these short answer questions, which are where you have to put into your own words what these choices are and explain more thoroughly. And then also at level 3 is where we get to the tasting side of things as well, which is notably different to the other qualifications. We have tasting across all the qualifications. Of course, at level 1 and 2, it's a little bit more to reinforce the theory, to show the different styles, whereas at level 3, you have to go a little bit deeper and be able to, again, use your own words to accurately describe. Anastasia, maybe you could take the lead on this one and just talk a little bit about how you prepared for level 2 and level 3, if there was anything in particular you found challenging and how you managed that.
Well, for level 2, the day before the exam, Henry kindly stayed a bit later and helped the students that had questions, and he took so much time explaining all the gelatinization, I remember. Oh my God, it was so funny, because we just couldn't understand, but thanks to him and to his patience with us, yeah. So I think how you can prepare. Yeah, so it's ideal if you, for level 2, read a bit of information in advance so it kind of sits in your head. But also in level 2, it's not too intense and you are guided each day to answer all these questions. And so it makes sense because I remember I was really stressed in the morning on Friday when it was my exam time. I thought, oh my God, how am I going to do it? But then it just made sense because each day is structured like the way that you actually, I wouldn't say that if you didn't prepare in advance, it would still be easy for you, but it's possible to do it without preparing in advance. You just memorize things each day. And for level 3, it's really important, as I said before, to prepare in advance. And each evening after the course, I was just doing the slides, and there is the test, online tests to prepare. And also at level 3, in the end of each day, we also do a mock test to prepare us so we kind of see the kind of questions we will have at the exam, because there is limited time, and in that limited time, you have to do the multiple choice question, and then you have to do this short essay kind of questions. But it's very tricky because there are 3 type of essay kind of questions there. State, identify, and explain. And you should make sure that when you state, you don't write too much. You just state. When it's identify, you identify. And only when it's explain, you can get into details, because you can just lose so much time and write a lot for the question that does not require you to write a lot, and you will not get extra marks for it. So it's very important to read the question really carefully. Um, and I think I was worried the most about the blind tasting, but in reality, I think the worst was the short questions. Yeah, the essay one, because you suddenly had to like. I remember there were these questions like if you want to make not just this style of sake, but if you want the sake to have these qualities, this characteristic, if you want to taste, if you want it to taste like this certain way, how do you make it? And you have to identify what style of sake it is, and then you also have to explain. So it's a bit more complex, and you have to be really focused when you do this questions. Multiple choice is okay, it's fine. Is just a bit more questions than on level 1 and level 2. Um, you just need to know kanji for that. There's quite a lot of kanji, but it's still not that difficult, I think. Um, yes. And for the tasting, for me personally, it wasn't very difficult because one of the sakes was my favorite style of sake, and I immediately identified it. So it was really easy for me to write about it because I just thought, oh, thank God, I got that for that. So I was worried that it would be difficult for me to um, differentiate the two. If they're like not two different styles, I would get confused. But fortunately, there were two completely different styles, and one was my favorite style. So even when the examiner was pouring it for me, I thought, oh, I know exactly what it is. So yeah.
Yeah, I think you've sort of echoed many people's experiences there in that they worry about the tasting a lot more initially. But actually for many people, this is the bit that they find by the time you've done all the course and then you've tasted all the sakes and you've been calibrated effectively, actually this is the bit that's going to be okay. And yeah, often the short answer questions are more the challenge. And through the course, we do, like yeah, as you said, have mock questions, have examples to go through the wording that you mentioned in more detail. So yeah, it's all sort of geared up to help you understand those. Henry, did you have anything you wanted to add in terms of exam preparation there?
The only thing I would add is that, of course, this being a sake qualification, there is a lot of Japanese vocabulary that turns up in the course. Um, it's not, in a way, all that different to some of the wine courses where you have to learn labeling terminologies in other languages. But we're also doing all of the production steps, especially at level 3. There'll be a Japanese name attached to that. So if you're new to Japanese language, I think it helps if you just spend a little bit of time looking at those words and trying to get your ear around them almost. There's also the Japanese characters, the kanji, which Anastasia mentioned. It's not a really big part of the exam, but there are about 10 Japanese characters that we expect you to be able to recognize in certain words, because when you're reading a sake label, it will often be in Japanese. So we want you to be able to recognize these really key terms. So if you spend a little bit of time with those as well earlier on, if you're new to the language, I think it removes a lot of the pressure when you come to the class and we're going through these ostensibly foreign sounding words and characters, which may not be the most familiar thing for somebody coming from maybe a Western framework.
Brilliant. Yeah, thank you for the tips. So the next part I just wanted to hone in on a little bit more was the sake, the tasting part. Um, so Henry, maybe you could talk us through again how it changes at the different levels, what you're expecting from students at different levels.
For sure. So level 1, that's the 1 day course, introductory level. So we're really just asking students to pick up on intensity, um, both on the nose and on the palate, and aromas and flavors. So that's really what we focus on. We don't focus on the structural tasting of sweetness, acidity, alcohol body. We're really focusing on getting you to enjoy kind of the fruitiness or the nuttiness or the creaminess of the sake, and coming out of that level 1 course with kind of a very broad framework of how the flavors of the sakes are different in that sense. So aromas and flavors and intensity. Level 2, we do introduce, of course, more samples, 18 samples versus those 9 samples at level 1. So we're tasting now quite broadly. But also when we come to the SAT, we expect more of you in terms of the palate especially. So that structural tasting of sweetness, acidity, umami, which might be new for those of you who've studied wine, which you might see tannins in that spot on the SAT instead. We don't have tannins, we have umami here. Alcohol, body, flavor intensity, flavor characteristics, and finish. So those 3-point scales coming in on the palate for structural analysis of the sake. But we're tasting quite broadly again, so that's 18 samples. We're getting quite a good lay of the land of the sake world at 18 samples. 9, I think it's more of that introduction. We're tasting kind of 5 or so mainstream styles and 4 specialty styles. Level 2, we're tasting about 12 sort of mainstream styles and 6 specialty styles or so. And then level 3, we're tasting 46 samples. So it's so exciting. You really get to delve deep into different factors that can influence production. And you're also pushing out onto the edges of the sake world and kind of what's cutting edge or what's really modern. What's happening now in sake. Within the SAT itself, we're expecting more precision throughout the SAT as well. So a lot of these 3-point scales will turn into 5 or 6-point scales. So the sweetness turns into a 6-point scale, going from this 3-point scale at level 2, off dry, medium sweet. That will go to dry, off dry, medium sweet, sweet, and luscious. So kind of you get this expanded range to work with. And for instance, for acidity, instead of low, medium, high, we'd have low, medium minus, medium, medium plus, and high. So we're expecting a little bit more precision from students at the level 3. And then also we're adding in quite significantly a quality conclusion at level 3. So we do introduce the idea of it at level 2 to get people sort of kind of warmed up to the idea, I suppose. But level 3 is where we're really asking students to do this because it does come up on the tasting exam. Of the 2 samples, there'll be one which is more of an identification task at the level 3, where you're expected to say this is either a Ginjo style or a Junmai style. This is, a Ginjo style versus a non-Ginjo style. Maybe it's a Nigori or not, or a Koshu or not, that's a cloudy or an aged sake or not. Whether it's been made with a special yeast starter or not. So you'll be expected to do this identification exercise on the first sake, and then on the second sake, there'll be more of a quality assessment expected at the end of that problem. We're always looking to link theory and tasting throughout the course. So I think that's probably the most exciting thing, is getting to drill into 1 or 2 elements or facets of a sake, 1 or 2 decisions that can change. So for instance, at level 2, we do a tasting of different yeasts. So the same sake brewer, but they're using a different yeast. So ostensibly made in the same way, but how does the yeast, if we just isolate this variable, if we change the yeast, how does that change the sake? And so we do that both at level 2 and level 3, but at level 3 we do a lot more of it. So for instance, at level 2, we'll probably do that for yeast, we'll do that for polishing ratio, but for level 3, we'll do that not only for yeast and polishing ratio, but we'll do it for rice variety, we'll do it for water, we'll do it for yeast starter, we'll do it for regionality. So there's a lot more deep tasting, as it were, at level 3, linking that theory and tasting piece together.
Brilliant. And Anastasia, from your perspective, you mentioned at the exam, like one of the styles you sort of just were more familiar with, and that helped. But in terms of that sort of calibration process through the different levels, how did that work for you? Were you doing any more tasting outside of the course as well?
Well, during the course, there was no time for me to do extra tasting outside of
Fair
the
point.
course, but I was getting enough at the actual course every day because, as was mentioned, there were like way more samples for us to try different styles. And yes, so in the tasting sheets, it had to be all very detailed. And at first, it was the teacher Natsuki. She was guiding through how to fill this in, and then we had to do it on our own. So yeah, and I think once you understand how it works, it becomes easy. And maybe if you're just given this at first and like, oh, what do I do? How do I understand if it's good or not? But then there is a system how to identify the quality of sake, if it's outstanding, if it's just good, or if it's bad. So it kind of starts making sense. Of course, there are some nuances, but by the end of the course, all of the students that I was doing it with, we all pretty much had the same answer. So it kind of starts making sense. Yeah. So it's not something that you should stress about too much. I would stress more about, as I said, the essay questions, not about this, even though this sounds most confusing, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. My advice to any level 3 students these days is just trust the process, which no one wants to because they go, like, oh no, but I can't do it right now. How am I ever going to be able to do it? And actually, through this repetition, through this calibration, pretty much everyone gets there. But I think at the beginning, it was quite hard to see how that's going to be achieved by the end. So, yeah, thank you for explaining that so elegantly. All right. So just a couple more slides from me just to mention a little bit of student experience in terms of their courses with us. This is information from the student survey, which we send out after every course just to try and get a little bit of understanding from the student perspective of why they do the course, what they enjoyed about it, and so on. So these were the top reasons for students studying sake to come and take a course with us. So of course, increased product knowledge is going to be an important one, and this will be relevant for people working in the sake industry or often in hospitality or sort of associated industries, but also just for those doing it for fun. I think develop tasting skills. Yeah, we've just talked about that quite extensively, and I think you can see how that level of detail and particularly the ability to talk about quality changes so much. And again, if you're just doing it for fun, that's going to be useful. You know, if you're out in Japan or you're visiting sake producers, or even if you're just, you know, in a restaurant, it's really useful to understand that. But equally from the service or production side of things, you need to kind of know what it is you're looking for. Improving confidence as well. Yeah, I mean, I think we all want to know that when we're confronted by a list of samples, or if we're in a shop, that we can kind of pick something that is matching the style that we're looking for, that we know we're going to like. So certainly, yeah, we can help with that. And yeah, even get you reading some kanji as well, which is maybe not the skill you think you're going to start with, but it's the skill you could finish with. And have fun as well. You know, Anastasia mentioned the first course in particular, the level 1, is more the fun side of things, and it does get more serious as we go through, of course it does. But at the end of the day, you're still tasting some fantastic drinks, still learning about this kind of wonderfully interesting, fascinating world. So there's always going to be that side of it too. And then just wanted to share some student feedback. So this is also sort of based on our surveys. I'll just have a quick read through some of these. So level 1 feedback, someone saying they thoroughly enjoyed the level 1 course. Teacher was knowledgeable, engaging. It was interesting and informative. Would recommend to anyone who is interested, or even if you're not. Just so you know, I didn't write these, by the way, just so you know. Level 2, we can see that that person said level 2 Sake course was fantastic. Henry was a great educator and the materials were really good and the samples were very interesting. So yes, did I put that there because I knew Henry was going to join us today? Maybe. But it's not by far not the only comment that mentioned him by name and how great the experience was with him. So yeah, we're always very pleased to be able to share like such positive feedback about our educators. And for the level 3, as you can see, completing WSET Level 3 in Sake was incredibly satisfying, gaining in-depth knowledge, deepening appreciation for remarkable craft and connection to craftsmanship. Yeah, amaze and inspire. I mean, I genuinely couldn't have written it better myself. So hopefully that gives all of you watching a little bit of, well, hopefully a lot more of an idea of what goes on for each of the qualifications and what to expect. This is now where we're going to flip over to the Q&A section. I think we've got a couple of questions in there already, but now it's sort of over to everyone out there. If you've got anything that hasn't been answered yet or anything else that you're thinking about, we've got a few minutes left. So first question. Henry, maybe you can help with this. Someone who's got an advanced Sake professional certificate from John Galtner, do they need to do level 2?
So John's courses are fantastic. I have heard, I've not done them, but I know so many people who speak very highly of them. I think they offer something slightly different to WSET. I think that the tasting approach in particular for WSET is something that is very well respected. So it's whether or not you want more time to develop that tasting approach. I think with that knowledge, there would be some theoretical overlap with the level 2. But I think more the systematic approach to tasting, especially whether you want more time with that, I think that would probably be where I would consider the difference of whether I need to do it or not.
Okay, that is useful. Thank you. Another question says, is the level 3 learning book including the content of the learning book of level 2? I'm pretty sure the answer to that is yes. We're kind of building on the knowledge at each qualification. But again, Henry, maybe you could just sort of confirm or clarify that.
Yes, so there are places where the knowledge is expanded, of course, in the level 3 book, both in terms of the same material being deepened and also adding additional material which wasn't deemed examinable at level 2. So the level 2 book, there are some slightly different explanations just to match the level as well. Mm-hmm. But fundamentally, the theory is kind of matching, and the level 3 will include the level 2.
Cool, thank you. Another sort of question on relative comparison. How does the level 1, 2, 3 certification compare to the sommelier certification in Sake?
Is that the diploma the JSA diploma? I don't know if there's another sommelier. There's the sommelier association as well. Sorry. So I haven't done the SSA qualifications, so I can't really speak to them. But from what I've heard, they teach. I think the WSET takes kind of a more, with the SAT again, it's a very sort of standardized approach to the sake tasting, and it's a very well regarded approach. If you're comparing to the JSA diploma, the Japan Sommelier Association diploma, That is quite a technical qualification with a lot of fine brewing knowledge and a lot of history, a lot of kind of factual recall is required for the exam. And the tasting approach is completely different to WSET. It's very it's the Japanese Sommelier Association, so it's kind of a Japanese framework. So it's quite interesting to do, having been sort of coming from the WSET background, I guess, having come up through the wine qualifications and the spirits qualifications as well. But it's a very, very different approach, the JSA tasting approach. So quite a different exam overall. Doesn't really test that application piece so much, like the level 3 does. It's more about very fine factual recall of very specific brewing science, and then and brewing history and all sorts of things, and then this kind of slightly unusual tasting exam, at least from the WSET perspective, as well. And it also covers shochu as well, the JSA diploma. So you've got some spirits thrown into that qualification as well.
Okay, sounds fascinating. I'm not sure my sake skills are going to stretch that far.
I would say do the JSA diploma after the level 3. It's probably the
Okay,
correct
yeah, that's a good way to frame it. Cool. Yeah, okay, thank you for that. I've got another question that asks if the qualification is recognized in Japan. I think I was trying to say at the beginning that it was it originates in conjunction with Japanese producers. Natsuki, that you mentioned earlier, was a sake samurai who was again one of the key people behind writing the materials. So we've got a lot of knowledge and investment that comes from Japan in terms of creating the courses. There are also courses being run in Japan as well. But again, maybe Henry, in fact, both of you, I know that you both do visit Japan as well. So do you ever see it from the other side, from being in Japan, sort of the conversation there?
Yes, so it has great reputation in Japan, and actually, I believe that just last month it was the first Japanese language course that they ran when in Japan for the level 2 or 3. I'm not sure which one it was, but it was I think both actually. First they did the level 3 and then the level 2 in Japanese. So they've just managed to change it over now into the Japanese format. And the uptake was absolutely huge. They had something like 50 students on the first level 2 in Japanese. So it's definitely something that is recognized in Japan through the wine route, I think, as well. The WSET wine qualifications are very, very well respected in Japan. But now that we've got the Japanese qualification, I think we're going to really see real growth in the recognition and prevalence of the WSET sake qualifications in Japan as well.
Wonderful. Anastasia, did you have anything else to add to any of those comments?
Not to those specific comments, but I would say that I would definitely recommend to take the course. Also because it's a great networking opportunity and you can make amazing people who are also interested in sake and work in the industry. And I keep in touch with some of the people that I did level 1, level 2, and level 3. And we'll all go to different sake events, and it's incredible, incredible opportunity. And also, I think, I don't know if it's only for level 3, but I know that now after the course, they also take you to Kampai Brewery. That's so amazing. I wish it was a thing when I was doing it. I want to go
We'll
to
just
the.
you and I can go one day. We'll go and have a
Oh,
drink there.
yes,
I'll take
amazing.
you.
Yes, let's go. Yeah, because there is a tour there, not just that. So yeah, we definitely must go. Yeah, so I think the course, like, they just get like all 3 levels, they just getting better and better, more interesting to just attract more people to the industry. So I hope that, yeah, everybody who's here is now I'm excited to take the course and learn from Henry and other educators there.
Yeah, thank you. That's a really sort of lovely note to end on, and something maybe we don't often think about as part of the course is that kind of opportunity for meeting people and the experiences beyond the course and where that will take you. I think that is then the end of the questions. So I'll just sort of leave us with this final slide here, and also gives me an opportunity to say thank you so much to Henry and Anastasia for your time and your experience tonight. I think you have, well, certainly for me, it feels like a very kind of clear understanding of what goes on in the courses, how it changes, what to kind of expect, and how to prepare yourself. So if anyone has any follow-up questions, feel free to contact us here at the school, and we can obviously get back to you on those. But other than that, it's just been a lovely experience and a lovely evening. So thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julia. And I hope to see some of the names in the chat at the next sake courses.
Yeah, Henry is an amazing teacher, so I highly recommend him. So don't hesitate and join the course.
Amazing. Well, couldn't have said it better myself. I will just stop the recording here then.